Hey guys, we are live. This is the last day of Black Friday. The Black Friday sale, I should say. Friday is long gone. We're Sunday right now. And I thought I'd go live just to close out the weekend. We can talk dog training, dog behavior, all that good stuff. And just a reminder to everybody, let me just make sure that this is unlisted so people can see it, and then we'll carry on from there. But there are some topics I would like to address in this live. Okay, good. We are unlisted. Sometimes I forget to unlist the video, which means that literally no one can see it. Hello, hello. Good. Okay, I see people jumping on here. Yeah, so I wanted. It's funny, I posted a reel from last year where I'm walking off leash, my dog off leash in like a town up north. And I make the comment that positive only trainers cannot do it, and you will never see them do it. And last year, it caused quite a let's say, stir. And this year, it also seemed to cause a stir. The same clip, go figure. I guess people already forgot it from last year. So good to remind them. I have a few more of those saved up that I'll be putting out over the next little bit. But I want to address this because I stand by what I said. You will not see them do it. They'll swear up and down in the comments that they do it, but they will never do it. The simplest thing, we're not even talking about complicated stuff. We're talking about simply taking your dog for a walk off leash in a busy urban environment. You will not see them do it. It's just that simple. And the reason why, I'll explain the reason why. Because the way they train does not allow them to do it. Now, let's not confuse a dog that will stay with you of his own free will from his or her preference with a dog that you have trained to do so, with a dog that if you made them loose, they would be all over the place, investigating, running around, jumping on people, fighting with other dogs, whatever. Let us not confuse that with the dog that naturally will stay with you. I've spoken about this before, perhaps it bears speaking about again. I like to use this example. Um, we have a Chihuahua here, and she has always been a fearful dog. And when my wife takes her out for a walk, she has never been trained, but she always will stay next to my wife, and she will stay off leash next to my wife, and she will walk anywhere, whether it's in public or in the woods or wherever, and she will always be trustworthy. She will never run away because for her, the most safe place is next to my wife. Is this a dog that is trained? Is this for sure? She likes food. You can give her treats, and she will happily take them. And if I was a let's say disreputable positive only trainer, I would use a dog like this to pretend that my training works. But let's not confuse that with the average dog. That given their own free will, the average pet dog, given their own choice, their own free will, they might not run away, but they're definitely not going to be walking attentively at your side through crowds of people, past numerous different types of stimulation across the road, all of that stuff. They might be running all around and staying kind of within eyesight of you. But that's not what we're talking about. And this is why you will never see a positive only trainer doing that simple thing of walking a dog in a busy urban environment. It is too risky for them. They cannot trust their dog in those environments because the dog has not been trained. And I think that now some people say, well, I never want to walk my dog off leash. And it's not it doesn't matter. I don't want to walk my dog ever off leash. And there's some people, they truly feel that way. And I would say that's not the point. The point isn't whether you want to do it. The point is, why can't you do it? And if the philosophy that you're following does not allow you to do it, there's something wrong with it because it's not an overly complicated thing to be able to walk with your dog off leash in a public place. We're not talking about IGP. We're not talking about, competition obedience, protection work, tracking, optimized performance. We're talking about simply taking your dog out in public and walking them through a busy urban environment, something that everybody has to do with their dog on a regular basis. And if you can't do it using your training methodology, which is what Obviously, I did it in a way, I made that reel in a way that I knew it would piss them off. It was an organic moment, we were walking in this town with our dogs off leash. But in the sense that, when I said it, I said, "Oh, that's money. Let's make that into a reel because it's going to drive them crazy." And then "Oh, in Norway, we are forbidden to use the e-collar, and we do this all the time." Stop it. Stop lying. I go to Europe all the time. I know what you guys do, and there's nobody walking their dog off leash in public unless it's exactly the type of dog that I mentioned earlier, aka my wife's Chihuahua, right? You don't take like, dog, the average independent, like, dog that has any level of independence and say, "Oh, I trained you with cookies. You will stay next to me now," in public when the people walk by and the person skateboards by and the car zooms by and the dog at the neighbor's dog is barking at you. "Yeah, you're going to stay right next to my side for the cookies." It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense if you understand how dogs learn and think. So let's stop pretending. And the reason why they're in the comments saying these things instead of actually, "Oh, Susan Garrett can do it." No, she can't. No, she can't. Like, who told you that she could? It's like, like, she's an agility champion. Okay. What does that have to do with walking with your dog in public? It has nothing to do with that. And agility, it has no reflection. She said, agility has no reflection on actually creating reliably obedient dogs and showing that you can create, very strong impulse control and complex behavior patterns, or not even complex, like, let's say, like crude behavior patterns that are productive for the real world, right? It's like, let's stop pretending. It's not that, you know, it's not that you can't do anything with it, for sure, especially with a dog that's food motivated, with a dog that is operant, especially with a dog that is more very pack oriented, has a lot of pack drive, so to speak. They have a high desire to please you and to work with you, and they love patterns. These types of dogs, you can do so much with positive only training. You can do a lot, but you can't do it all, especially something so simple like walking with the dog in public, because that requires more than pack drive and motivation for a length of time. "Oh, the reel was only 46 seconds." Yeah, the reel was part of an entire YouTube video that I did where we walked around for well over an hour in that town with the dogs next to us. And, we did not have to give them food or any of this type of stuff. They just walked next to us, right? Because they understand, even though, yes, I would like to go and smell that other dog. I would like to go and see what, nice food that person is eating. I would like to go piss on that tree or smell that fire hydrant. I must stay next to you. You think the dog does that only because he's motivated to do it? How long does motivation last? Your whole training system is based exclusively on motivation, right? It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't stand up to even the most cursory amount of logic, right? Because the dog has free will, and you cannot subvert that free will exclusively with motivation. And the free will not be always to stay next to you unless it's the type of dog that I mentioned at the beginning of the live. And we must never confuse that type of dog with the average dog, because the average dog is what and you have. And those are the people that I'm trying to help. Those are the people that come to me for training. And if you are a professional dog trainer, those are the people that come to you for training. So, yeah, come on, Fluffy. Let's go for a walk. It does. It works every time. But you know what it does? It also stimulates conversation. It stimulates conversation. But you see, they won't take me up if I say, "Oh, let's go for a half-hour walk." We take everything off the dogs. No candy for the dogs. No collars. No nothing. We just go for a walk off leash. We see how it goes, right? Adisco says, "We've purchased your online dog training classes. Thank you so much. It made our dog so manageable. We have a Belgian Malinois." Awesome, Adisco. I'm happy to hear it. Oh, by the way, guys, my Black Friday sale ends tomorrow. ShieldCanineOnline.com, 40% off all our online training courses. And for those of you that wanted to jump in the Pro Trainer, I am closing the entire Pro Trainer course tomorrow, as well as, of course, the sale for the Pro Trainer course, which is 20% off, is ending as well. So if you want to get in, my suggestion is get in now, because I will close everything tomorrow. But yeah, that's why I like to make content like that, because I'm highlighting the disparity in reality, the perception of reality, and not the actual reality. That's why I can go out. Listen, if there was a positive only trainer out there that could reliably train dogs off leash, with cookies, they would be selling so much product it wouldn't even be funny, right? They would be selling so much product. Now, of course, there's guys and trainers that take advantage of this trend and they make like a course or whatever. And then you always find, hey, someone took the course and then they talk about it's like, bro, this course was like bullshit. There was like no actual showing of the work in the course. There was tons of holes in it. But hey, there's a sucker born every minute, right? And they bought it. Yes. Yeah, the Pro Trainer is open and it will close tomorrow. If you want to jump into the Pro Trainer and you bought already the Elite Gold or the Elite Off Leash, then there will be a discount based on the fact that you already have a purchase. So my advice, email info. Well, actually, no, he won't be in tomorrow. Um, yeah, man, it's last minute. Email info at shieldk9.ca, and hopefully we can get you squared away tomorrow before we close everything. MSNE13 says, always have my e-collar on both my German Shepherd, full protection work training, etc. The moment they know I have it off, they push the limits. Yes, they stay by my side, but they push the limit. Free will is a bitch. Well, it's not really. I find so like personally for me, I like dogs that have more independence and free will. Like they're more enjoyable for me to spend time with. Do I have to, of course, correct these dogs? Sometimes some more than others, of course. But for me, they're enjoyable dogs. I like, the dog that just kind of like always is going to be with you no matter what. For me, I'm not so like, of course they're nice dogs and whatever, but it's not my preference in terms of personality type. I like the dogs that are a little bit more independent, a little more like, hey, I want to satisfy myself. I want to do something that's enjoyable for me. It's my personal preference in dogs. I like dogs like that. What else do we have here? Am I doing any more competitions within the Shield community? Well, right now we have an ongoing competition within the online training group, the Elite Members group. It is a freestyle competition. I think the video must be no longer than 20 seconds, and the deadline is December the 14th. So I'm excited to see what our members come up with. Oh, I'm glad you got the Elite Gold. So, yes, there is a discount if you want to switch to the Pro Trainer. Let's see here. What else do we see? Yeah, if your dog is choosing to scratch instead of come on the recall, you again, I address this in my courses, right? This is a common thing. It's what we call a an all like so the dog is basically offering an alternate behavior. It's not the desired behavior that you have, but you are creating pressure, and the dog seeks to alleviate the pressure through an alternate behavior than the one that you desire. So instead of coming with the pressure, he's instead choosing to scratch the pressure. And in many cases, people will stop making the pressure when the dog scratches. So then the dog learns that scratching is the solution to the problem, right? And pretty easy to fix it. And there's this saying too that you see all the time. Oh, positive only works for many dogs, but not these crazy protection dogs or not these crazy working dogs. This is absolute nonsense, right? Positive only works for and what do we mean by works? What do we mean by works? Like works is a very subjective term. For me, a dog is not trained unless it has a bulletproof off-leash recall, unless you can call it off another dog, wildlife, people, unless you can call it through any kind of busy environment, unless it can, at the very minimum, hold a sit and a down stay under high levels of distraction. I'm not talking about in your training room or wherever or in a field by himself, but I'm saying like if you drop him in a down on the sidewalk and you leave him there and there's like many people passing by with their dogs and strollers and kids and all of these things and he can hold it down there, then okay, that's a good down. Like I don't need a lot of behaviors, but I need certain behaviors to be very, very, very strong, that the dog should be able to walk next to you on command, again, in the same type of extremely busy environment. So if the dog can't do that, If the dog can't do those things with any degree of reliability, the dog always needs you to be putting liver treats in his mouth, and you have to have your head halter on the dog and all of these things. This is not for me a well-trained dog. But a lot of people will claim on the internet that their dog will do all of these things and it's well-trained, but then you say, show me, and then you see it, and it's either them luring the dog, baiting the dog with food, or they're constantly putting food in the dog's mouth, and it's still very loosey goosey, and it's like 30 seconds, instead of like, oh, like this is a sustainable behavior that the dog has that he can do for an hour and a half if you so choose, right? So this is what I mean, but there are some very small percentage of dogs that you can have success with, and they're a very specific type of dog with that type of training system, and you can come close to what I described with those dogs in that, type of system. But it's actually a very small percentage. The vast majority of dogs require and absolutely require, for that level of reliability and for any level of serious, like true behavior modification, they require a balanced training approach, right? The sensitive and fearful dogs absolutely require a balanced training approach. Aggressive and strong, confident dogs absolutely require a balanced training approach. Every dog benefits from a balanced training approach because it is a natural training approach. What you have to understand, and I'm banging on this because I want people to understand this. It's not like, do I reward my dog or do I correct my dog or do I do both, right? Think about it more deeply than that. How are dogs wired to communicate? How are they wired to communicate? What is their primary method of communication? Well, we know, anyone that knows even like the smallest amount about dogs know that the primary method of communication is body language, right? They express themselves to one another, basic simple messages through body language, the way they stand, the ears, the tail, the hair, the closeness of, the type of posture, all of these types of things. And that we know for a fact that domesticated dogs have learned from very language and react to it. And there are certain things always going to create a specific response with a dog. Don't believe me? Do this. If you have a dog that is like even remotely friendly, step away from the dog and go down on one knee. What will the dog do? The dog will come right into your body, right? You step away from the dog, you go down on one knee. That is a very inviting posture for the dog. They will come right up to you. Now, if it's a nervous, fearful dog, it will not, right? But the same thing. Walk over top of the dog and reach down to pet the dog. In most cases, the ears will go back, the eyes will become wide. The dog, if it's a very social friendly dog, will wag the tail. If it's not, or a little bit worried, usually the tail stays very still, and the dog will show that consistent behavior, right? There are certain things that we as humans can do to like 90% of dogs, and they will always react the same because body language is the most important form of communication with the dog. The way you stand, the way you move, right? What that means to the dog. They're very big on reading that. That is the primary form of communication with the dog. Then the second form of communication, and I would say it's the same as body language in terms of strength, in terms of meaning to the dog, is physical touch, the physical contact. And you will see dogs do this all the time when they play with each other. They will make physical contact consistently, right? They will touch each other. They will nip each other. They will put a paw on each other. They will bump each other. They will shove, push, wrestle, right? When they have a disagreement about something, when they're competing for a resource, right? They will again use their physical contact with the body, with the paw, with the head, with the mouth, right? When they're fighting with each other, for sure there's physical contact, right? And the way that they apply the physical contact, where on the body the physical contact is applied, right, will depend, of course, on what they're doing and what they're trying to accomplish. When you see dogs being affectionate with one another, physical contact, right? So body language and physical contact, those two things are the most powerful methods of communication with dogs, between one another and with of course with us, with humans, because dogs don't have the ability to put themselves on the human level of communication. They must always be on the canine level of communication. And we as human beings, of course, we're not going to be fully canine in the way that we communicate, but we must follow the fundamental rules of communication that they follow, which is body language and physical touch. If you do not follow those rules, you will never have a complete set of communication with them. Those are the two most powerful ways to communicate with the dog, right? And then the last is the verbal communication, the sounds that we make. And those only become meaningful to the dog because we attach the sounds that we make to tangible outcomes from body language and physical touch. And then, of course, positive reinforcement or negative reinforcement, but negative reinforcement is physical touch, right? And, of course, body language. So, the most powerful way to communicate with a dog is actually not food or a toy. It is primarily your body language, and it is the physical touch. That is the most powerful way to communicate with a dog. Now, the toy is an outcome, right, that you can attach to a body cue, a touch cue, or a verbal cue, or a combination of all three or two of those things, right? So, when you understand these pillars of communication, right, that the dogs require in order to comprehend something, understand something, be able to predict something meaningful is going to come. Okay, when he does this set of movements physically, when he touches me in this way, X is going to happen. When I feel this contact and I hear this noise, Y is going to happen, right? They're very binary. They think in a very binary way, like X plus Y equals Z, or X equals 1, very simple thought process. So, this is why you have to understand, like, this is how they think, and this is why any other form of training does not properly work with them, because you're not communicating in a way that is meaningful to them on those levels that I just described. And of course, the limit of your communication is informed by the way that you by the things that you will not do, right? So let's say I could only talk to you like this. I could only speak in a very low voice to you. And, let's say I said, you know what, I'm not even going to move like the upper body at all. Like, my upper body's going to stay still, and I'm only going to talk to you like with a low voice like this. That is going to limit what I can communicate to you, especially if you're further away, especially if you're distracted, right? It's going to be a limited form of communication. But you see, when I communicate with you, I raise and I lower my voice, I move my body, right? Because it turns out we're also very nonverbal communicators. And if we're close proximity, I can add physical touch to highlight, hey, Jack, this is what I need you to do. Hey, man, like, look, okay, let's go over here, I can add all of these things, and dogs are even more strongly oriented to that. Let's see what we say here. How many commands at a time is best to train a puppy? Well, I want you to change how you think about commands. What is a command, right? Most people think of commands as a verbal signal they give the dog that yields a specific behavior, right? But that's not actually what a command is, and that's not how I train commands. I train the dog to respond to body language and touch cues, right? And give the dog a tangible outcome for those things. So, for instance, to make the dog lay down, I may touch him on the shoulder and lure him down with my body language to the ground, and then open my hand and give him a piece of food, right? And I'll do that over and over again. I don't say down and then expect that he's going to lie on the ground. So I use my body language, I use physical touch, I guide the dog into the behavior, I create a pleasurable, desirable outcome for him for that behavior, and we do it until I see that the dog is very comfortable and he understands these cues. When he shows me he understands the most powerful cues of physical touch and body language, I then add the verbal cue, which is the least powerful. And I precede those cues that he already knows how to respond to with the verbal down, and then I help him with the touch on the shoulder and the lure down to the ground. And then, of course, through the process of repetition, the dog understands quickly that the signal down is going to lead to this other set of cues to help him achieve the behavior of lying on the ground, right? So that is, I can do a lot of different ones. So dogs will learn nonverbal, dogs will learn body language and touch cues, and they can learn and respond to like a dozen of them in one session. And what I do with my puppies is I actually spend a lot of time teaching them to respond to my body language and to respond to touch cues. And you can see this in all the training that I do before I ever add a command. So really, I'm working on maybe a dozen to half a dozen behaviors in a single session with a puppy, but I might not give one single command because the command is the last thing that I add to the equation, right? So to answer your question, you can work on like a dozen behaviors in a single session and pieces of behavior, right? So like, for instance, there's behaviors that are more complex, like we have lying on the ground and then we have healing, right? Healing is a much more complex behavior than lying on the ground. I'm going to teach healing in multiple different pieces, right? I might also work on barking in front of me, looking at me, and being centered to me. I might work on the dog doing a front, but I'm not going to teach him a full formal front in all the things. I might just work on the final part where he comes and sits in front of me. You know, there's a lot of different things, and all of this is achieved through body language and touch cues. So, you know, to answer your question, you can work on many behaviors at the same time. Jonah says, how can I build my German Shepherd's alertness on my property? I've got a 17-month-old working line German Shepherd who's naturally very neutral towards strangers on my property. He might posture up a bit, but never barks. I mean, look, that's not really something you can train your dog to do. To a big degree, right? To a huge degree, this is a genetic inborn behavior. The dog to be suspicious and watchful of people coming on the property. Now, you know, if the dog has sufficient quality, you can of course, you know, maybe start doing some protection training with the decoy, and then eventually have the decoy come out to your house and do some work there. But there's nothing you can do to train that by yourself. You can take my DIY protection course, of course, and then you don't need a professional decoy, and you can follow the DIY protection course, and that often will lead to a heightened level of suspicion and alertness. But of course, you must do that at your own risk. Do I do PSA? No, but I coach people in PSA, in parts of it. John says, I just got your off leash course. How long and often during the day do you train? 10-month-old German Shepherd, lots of energy. 2 to 3 times a day, and typically I'll mix my training sessions into my walks. Landry Rogers says, saying there are some dogs who don't need pressure is like saying there are certain people who are so righteous they don't need consequences to keep them in line. These special dogs people don't exist. Very true. I mean, I'm sure there's some humans on this earth that you simply tell them to do the right thing. And, you know, because of the way they're wired and, you know, you know, maybe how easy they are in nature, that they could exist with very minimal error in that type of environment, but the vast majority of humans, of course, no. Mr. Ito says, hey, Haz, I'm an elite member. My 10-week-old male working line German Shepherd puppy is trying to attack my female adult dog and generally dog reactive. They are separate, but it's intense. Should I still not correct? Well, I would say, sir, that I have not seen a 10-week-old puppy truly attack anything, or it's extremely, extremely rare. I don't know what you really mean by that, but if you mean like maybe she surprised him and he barked at her, but if you're speaking about like a committed dog attack, he's 10 weeks old. He's a puppy. He cannot do that. You know, but of course, you know, for sure, like if he's living with her and you know, he's not just being a puppy, being excited, which I would be much more likely to believe than that he's actually in a committed way attacking your dog as a 10-week-old puppy, then, you know, for sure you can certainly correct. never follow the crowd says, my dog has a lot of anxiety, under socialized. How do I keep him calm outdoors? You teach him the elite off leash obedience course and you follow that. All the fearful dogs that we get in for training go through the elite off leash obedience course. We do structured play with them, and we use a combination of both those things to keep them task oriented when we're on walks. We never leave them in a situation where they're wondering what to do. We always give them something to do, whether it's simply sitting next to you, healing, loose leash walking, playing, and you occupy that crazy, crazy mind that they have, right? Where they're like, oh, that person's gonna kill me. Oh my God, what was that noise? They're busy, crazy mind, always like thinking and worrying and becoming just, and they spool themselves up. Right? All you have to do is you give them structure to exist within, and all they have to worry about is completing the exercise that you give them at any given time. And it's actually very easy for them once you do that. Complex Persona says, is the male you played Boogeyman with recently going to be for sale? Yes, he is for sale. Jasmine McAllister says, what about unicorn emojis for communicating to dogs? I hear they work. Ashley Rose says, why do people with loud hyper voices personality make my dog want to lock onto them? Can that be fixed to prevent a bite? Simply because they're bringing a lot of arousal. So dogs that are human aggressive will naturally target arousal. So that person is acting with a lot of energy. They have a lot of energy, and arousal always attracts arousal. So your dog is looking for a threat, and they say, okay, well, this just like reactive dogs are more reactive with other dogs that are excited and reactive as well, right? Because that dog's exhibiting arousal, it's much more likely to trigger my reactive behavior, right? And it's the same with your dog, with humans. Jonah says, I have your protection course already, just haven't went through it yet. Thanks. Perfect. Who in Europe do you think is breeding real German Shepherds, the old school stuff? What do you mean, the old school stuff? Like, you realize the stuff now is way better than the old school stuff, right? The only people telling you the old school stuff was awesome were people that have you looked at like videos of the old dogs? They're not better. It's like watching a video of guys playing basketball in the 1970s, right? Like, it's not better. They're not better. The only people that want to sell you that dream are people that have not accomplished anything in this day and age. Jujitsu says, what is your protocol to remove sound while healing? I know you said you wait till you get close to competition. What do you mean sound? I don't remove sound. I'm not sure what you mean by that. Victor says, it was interesting to see Ivan Balabanov commenting on your live stream. I would like to see you guys do a conversation where you two discuss how to counter the force-free legislative arm. Nobody else is. Yeah, I think, he's doing some very good work in that arena. And, if, like I said, if there's an organization that I ever see step up to the plate that is going to combat them legislatively from a lobbying standpoint, I will immediately support that organization and speak to my community about supporting that organization. I'll do so every chance I get. And of course, I will monetarily support that organization as well. I'm waiting for that organization to emerge. I have a feeling that organization will not emerge up until, let's say, unfortunately, some bad legislation gets passed and it'll be kind of more of a reactive thing. But it is what it is. And of course, I'm going to continue to make the content that I make to further engage in the culture war with these ideologues. And yeah, we all do what we can do. Devon says, do you think it's possible for an Argentine dogo to achieve an IGP title? When I say this, I mean a very clear-headed social dogo with great genetic, extremely high prey drive and ball drive. Yeah, for sure. All sorts of dogs have achieved IGP titles. Give me the old school stuff where we had to chisel words into rocks. William She says they used to say start protection training at 1 year old. At what age would you say you can start these days? Um, I mean, typically I do a little bit with puppies. I don't do too much. When they're young, and then after they've done teething, I start training them. So I don't wait until they're 1 year old. Um, who would I say is breeding the top German Shepherds? Well, I mean, if you're looking for the top German Shepherds, go look at the World Championship, the WSV, which is the top German Shepherds in the world, and go watch maybe some of those dogs and see for you what dog you like the best. And then you can go look at the kennel and see for yourself. There's no like objectively top German Shepherd. There are many good kennels, and they make different types of German Shepherd. And depending on your personal taste and what you want in a dog, that kennel may be for you. Victor says your approach to the force free insanity is spot on. Absolutely. And again, I'll say this, people seem to think I bother them because like I have nothing better to do. I'm not bothering them. I'm responding to them. If they were, if they just wanted to kind of engage in their insanity in their own little corner of the world and not spread it like a cancer everywhere and try to, legislate away our ability to train dogs in the correct and natural way, then I would ignore them. But unfortunately, they're not content to just do what they do because what they do is not enough. Is in, unfortunately, they don't. Well, unfortunately, fortunately, I would say the market has not responded well to what they offer. Right, the market has a choice now in most every place in North America. I cannot speak for Europe. Well, I can, but here in North America, the market has given people a choice. You can go with balanced training, some form of balanced training, or you can go with some form of cookie training, positive only training. Because right now it's a free market, both in Canada and in the United States. And unfortunately for them, and the reason why they're becoming increasingly desperate and aggressive in their efforts is because they're losing the market share in leaps and bounds. And they're every day they lose clients, right? Like they're generally not doing well. There are very few of these trainers that do well in any kind of meaningful way. And so they're forced to try and win, not through, free enterprise, not through, actually competing with a training product that people will say, I want what you do over what he does. Instead, they must resort to legislation and try and force someone like me to not train because it makes it like illegal to, use any form of aversive on a dog or whatever nonsensical rule you can make, right? That's the only way they can win. They cannot win when actually put in the free market where their idea and my idea now meet, and the clients have to decide what actually works for them. That they can't win that. So they must resort to legislation. And this is why we must speak against them and identify them for the insane ideologues that they are. JB says, these dogs at the level you speak of, do you think a lot of them can do civil stuff where there is no equipment on? JB, this is like average stuff. This idea that like it's hard for a dog, like there's a half decent working dog to do civil stuff. Again, this is something that is perpetuated on the internet by people that are not good trainers, by people that have not accomplished anything meaningful. And so they prey on people like you, and they talk about check lines and DDR lines and how sport dogs today are not civil and blah 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 blah, because they cannot achieve anything meaningful. So their game now is to try and sucker the suckers. And I'm not saying sucker towards you guys in a derogatory manner. I'm saying it as in you guys are ignorant. You don't understand working dogs really. You don't understand the German Shepherd really. And so you are susceptible to tall tales, right? It's like anything in life, right? Whether it's crypto, investments, right? We're all susceptible to stories that sound good and make us feel good, right? Because and that promise a lot. So the dog world is no different. And there are many people that prey on people like you. Yes, of course, the dogs that are strong enough to make it to the top level of the WUSV will have the quality to do civil work. This is like whatever. Yes, well, Victor says the only people I see addressing them appropriately are you and Dylan Jones. I love Michael Ellis, but he's too diplomatic with them. It's like what I said in that live that people were referring to, where Ivan jumped on and said some things. Um, and for those of you that want to watch that live, I believe it was the last live I did addressing the force-free ideologues. But everybody, you cannot be who you aren't, right? If you're a diplomatic person, you're a diplomatic person. Like I don't know that Michael Ellis could be anything other than what he is. You know what I mean? Like I've never really watched him and said, yeah, like this dude's like, you know, he's the guy that's going to like say some harsh stuff. It just doesn't seem to be his personality. You know what I mean? So I don't suggest that anyone be other than what they are, right? I am this. This is how I am in real life. This is how I am on the internet. I'm very consistently who I am. So I address them in a way that is appropriate. But what I would say to people like Michael is that you don't have to maybe be as aggressive as I am, but also understand that there's no reaching across the aisle to these people. These are ideologues, and they're fundamentally sick, disturbed, and evil people. I don't even try to talk to them. I'm talking to the people that may be suckered into their approach, that may be tricked into believing their approach. Those are the people that I'm going to reach. And I'm going to reach those people by highlighting the idiocy of their position, the insanity of who they are, and marginalizing them through, a direct, aggressive approach and also a satirical, humorous approach. And that's what I'm going to do. And that's what I've been doing. Soulstar says reasonable balanced trainers have to split time between effective training and defending their methods. Force free trainers have to juggle acting like a clown and harassing trainers minding their own business. That's very true. Jiu-Jitsu says, how do you fix vocalization in the dog while healing? It's a big problem for a lot of people. They lose a lot of points on that. It depends on the dog. It depends on the dog. There's different approaches for different dogs. Some dogs you have to allow them to be a bit vocal in the healing, because the points you lose for the vocalization is not worth the points you will lose when you shut the dog up and the side effect of shutting the dog up, right? And for some dogs, it's absolutely imperative that you shut them up, right? So this is one of those conversations that's not a binary, do this, do that, problem solved, right? Gabrielle says, I've taken in a rescue German Shepherd. I believe an e-collar was used on him inappropriately. Any advice on how to help him? He nips at me, but I think he's playing. Yeah, you would recondition the e-collar from scratch and not assume that anyone did anything with it and just build it all from the ground up. Zombopper says, hi, Has. Thanks so much for sharing your knowledge. I've seen you using 2-inch wide nylon-looking collars with triangular D-loops and would like to buy one. Where can I find them? Supreme Canine Collars. They make fantastic collars. Melodrama boy, your receding hairline is making me uncomfortable. Well, that would probably be because you're a homosexual, which is fine. But, I guess you don't like guys that are losing their hair. It's okay. Find one that has more hair. Unfortunately, I don't swing that way anyways. Let's see here. What else do we have here? Is Gage's recovery going well? Yes, Gage is doing well. He is training well. I'm slowly getting him back into good physical condition. And I'm going to continue to push his physical condition, and we'll see. Once we get him into full swing of training that involves jumping, this is where we could potentially run into some issues, and we'll see if that injury. It's a groin. I think it's a groin tear, to be honest, and he's had it off and on over and over again. So we'll see if that injury reoccurs. Will you do a video on Rottweilers? I'm training a Rottweiler right now. I am training a Rottweiler right now. He came in nervous and reactive. And I said, this is a fantastic dog to show my process with a more nervous type of dog. He's a young Rottweiler, and I'm about a week into the training right now, and it's going fantastic with him. So I'm going to make him into, um, I'm going to make him into I think, a good obedience course. So you appear to be not only suffering from homosexuality, but also mental illness. One is fine with me, the other one not so much, because you shouldn't be on the internet. So I will ban you if you continue to speak. Otherwise, be. Sorry, guys. Somebody called me. Let me know if my sound disappears. Sometimes when people call me, my sound disappears. What do we have here? So I also, okay, good. Sound is good. Excellent. Um, I also I had some negative responses. I guess people are upset that I'm training a Doberman as well. Like, people are so strange, in the sense that it's like when I did my Doberman video and we had all the pushback that we had, which was very predictable, right? Hold on, let me just ban this psychopath. And you don't exist anymore. Goodbye. Anyways, uh, where was it? Yes. So people are like, "What? How could you be training a Doberman after you said all those terrible things about them?" I mean, like, I know people have the emotional maturity of a child in many cases, and they lack the ability to think critically. But when I said I literally train dozens of these individuals, on like a monthly basis, I wasn't lying. So I don't know why they're confused that I'm training a Doberman and that I'm showing the process with this Doberman. Right? It's like, we've been doing this a lot. In fact, if you go back on my YouTube channel, you'll see multiple Dobermans. There's no great surprise here. So just because I observe the strengths and the weaknesses of a specific breed and I make observations based on training many, many individuals, wouldn't mean that I wouldn't choose to train one. I literally say in the video, these are the problems that I have observed in the Doberman. This is based on exposure to many, many, many individuals. And then, of course, you have to, that's only with American lines, not the European lines. What are you talking about? The European lines, in many cases, the working lines are not, have like worse health. I don't know what you're talking about. But everybody's an expert on the internet. But what you have to realize is, when I say things like I have experience with many individuals within the breed, and the observations that I make are based on that, I'm not lying, because I have really no incentive to do so. So when I actually I'm training a Doberman, and you guys are seeing many of the things that I spoke about in the actual dog that I'm training, and if you go back and look at the other dogs that I've trained, the other Dobermans that have shown up on the channel, there are a few of them. Of course, there's many more that never did show up on the channel. You will see the same things that I'm saying actually, manifest in those dogs. I heard many people say Rottweilers don't do well in PSA. Why do you think why do you think they say this? Because Rottweilers are dogs that are emotional. Rottweilers, in order to do their best work in bite work, need a little bit of anger. And anger is not productive in dog sport, especially in PSA. You can have anger more in IGP than in PSA. Anger clouds the mind. Anger reduces the dog's ability to respond to variable stimulation. So, like, for instance, in PSA, because it's not a routine, the routine is constantly changing, and the dog has to be not angry, because if he's angry, it's going to make him less handleable. He's going to be less compliant, and he's going to, what's the word? He's going to go out of control. He's going to bite the decoy when he shouldn't, which of course will get you failed, or he's going to make a critical error that will cost too many points. And also, anger tires, right? For the Rottweiler to do the best work, and even people, when they say the Rottweiler has so much prey drive, most Rottweilers, and like 99.9% of them, don't have really actually that much prey drive, but what they do have is what the good ones do have is a lot of dominance and intensity, and that might carry you through an IGP routine because of the way IGP is structured, but it will not carry you through a PSA routine so much. And the ones that don't get angry usually are missing a gear, and they're not going to do so well in that sport. So I think you can see some like decent CanPV Rottweilers as well. But again, in CanPV, the dog can be a little more angry, a little more open than they can be in a sport like PSA. Chris Tanny says, I have a very nervous and reactive Doberman that I got at 2 years old from the previous owner that mistreated him badly. I still have trouble walking him outside. He's terrified of everything. Yes, take him through the elite off leash course, and teach him how to deal with the pressure of the world. And don't allow him to be afraid. Fear is something that you allow and enable, and most people don't realize that. So, like when your dog acts afraid and says, I don't want to go outside, I want to go home, and you say, okay, let's go home, you're actually making him more afraid. When your dog stops because he's afraid of walking through a doorway and he puts on the brakes and you stop and you say, come on, Fluffy, and you show him the cookies and you try and tempt him through the doorway and you spend 5 minutes in the doorway to try and get him through it, you are making him more afraid. When he gets scared of the fireworks and he runs underneath the bed and you allow him to do it because you think it makes him feel better, you are making him more afraid. And what people don't understand is the more you allow a dog to act afraid, the more afraid they become. So take him through the elite off leash course, do the structured play course with him, and do not allow him to be afraid. I have a bundle called the Rescue Dog Bundle. I would suggest you get that and run him through it, and he'll be a lot better. Siege Canine says, correct me if I'm wrong, Has, but haven't people overseas made homemade collars because they are now banned? Well, no. I mean, look, Germany still buys, I think like they're the second biggest buyer of e-collars in the world after the United States. And the e-collar is banned there. And they also are the biggest producer of prong collars. I buy my prong collars from Germany. They're banned there, but I buy all my prong collars from Germany from the company Herm Spranger, right? So JB240 says, I love how you all act like it's dumb to ask where true type GSDs are being bred. All you guys know is these prey driven GSDs who can't handle real pressure. Sounds like you've been listening to some of these suckers online, some of these sucker getters online. Why don't you go back to them and you guys can all touch each other and talk about how real your German Shepherds are, and you'll never accomplish anything. You'll never be on the field doing anything productive with those dogs, but you all can sit around in a circle and do you know what and tell each other, oh, my dog's so real. He's so real. He's not like these sport dogs. He's such a real dog. You guys should set up a support group for one another. And if what I just said offends you, you're exactly that type of person and you deserve that type of dog. Go get him. Man, I wish. One of these days, I'm going to just retire and I'm going to sell dogs to suckers. Maybe that's what I need to do. I'll just move down to Florida. I'll open a kennel. I'll call it something like Real World DDR Czech German Shepherds. And I'll just sell big dark sable dogs, with shit nerves, but they'll be big. And, I'll have pictures and videos of them barking, like with their teeth out behind the fence or tied back while like somebody whips them. And like people like this will go and spend like $10,000 on every puppy. Maybe that's my retirement plan. That's what I should do. I'm kidding. I'm not actually going to do that. I have too much of a conscience, unfortunately. Adela Zimala says, is WWL, working line shepherd, okay, second pet if you have experience owning XL bullies? Yeah, I would say, why not? Complex Persona says, I hate when PSA people say there is no pressure in IGP. I saw a PSA dog do blinds the first time and show a ton of avoidance in the card. Yeah, well, they say that because they cannot do it. It's kind of like, it's kind of like, you have to understand that, like, not most, pretty much everybody in PSA, well, not everybody nowadays, but back in the day, like everybody in PSA was the people that like could not accomplish anything in IGP. What what you don't understand in IGP is, yeah, we don't need a decoy running around like throwing cans at the dog. The pressure comes from the routine and the level of precision required in the routine as well as the drive transitions, right? So it's a different kind of pressure that you do not see in PSA, and it's a different kind of demand of the dog and of the handler and of the training, especially when we speak about the world level. We're not talking about club level. When we speak about world level IGP, there is no harder and more competitive dog sport in the world because you must be proficient across all three categories of both track, obedience, and protection. And in the protection, there are drive transitions. I never used a prong collar on my dog, only on my calves as massage. It's very good. Fantastic. Good for you. What else do we have here? Distinct Canine says, how long has the live been on? I have a feeling a live would come on. Oh, well, I don't know, man. Look back on the time. It says 55 minutes, so we're going to be ending this one soon. You are so silly. I'm going to explain something to you. You're probably not going to listen, but I'll explain this for everybody else. And this is for Mr. Real Working German Shepherd. The point is, there's plenty of, this is what he says, the point is there's plenty of working GSD who will bite a sleeve. Where are the ones who can go under immense pressure and still remain in the fight? So number one, I bet you, here's what I bet you. I bet you like this dog. He was a dog that he was like famous for about 30 minutes. His name was Zoob, Zoob. And this dog was exactly the type of dog I described. Nerfy, big, sable dog, right? Check lines or whatever nonsense, right? DDR, I don't know, whatever they labeled him as. And all these guys, oh, he's so real. You watch this dog doing bite work, and it just looks like he's just nervous, he's insecure, shallow grips, any kind of pressure he's popping. I want you to understand something about what you just said, because what you just said was oxymoronical, okay? You said, where are the ones that can go under immense pressure and still remain in the fight? What do you think, what drive do you think gets the dog through that? I want you to think about dogs that can do exactly what you're saying. What drive do you think gets a dog to do that? Defense? Defense is an avoidant drive. The dog perceives a threat and is reacting, keyword reacting, to the perceived threat, aka the behavior is stimulated because he believes that that person or thing represents a threat to him, right? I'm afraid. I am reacting. You are going to hurt me. You are going to kill me. This is why I'm doing what I'm doing. Do you think that leads to a committed fight, regardless of the cost? Right? No, of course not. That behavior is primarily a function of prey drive. Yes, prey drive. Why do you think the pit bull will go in the box? The good ones that were bred in that way will go in the box and fight for 2 hours against another dog until one of them is dead. That is prey drive. That is not defensive drive or whatever fight drive bullshit people want to come up with, right? That is a prey drive that was bred specifically for that specific purpose. What you have to understand, and what people like you don't understand because you listen to retards on the internet who have accomplished nothing, is that prey drive actually consists of multiple components. I have a very educational video on prey drive completely free on YouTube, which I strongly suggest you watch, where I spend 50 minutes plus, I think, lecturing on prey drive and the various components of prey drive. And when you understand those components, you understand how and why prey drive is a necessity, and in fact, the primary drive required for dogs that do police service work, dogs that do military work, and dogs that perform in dog sport at a high level. Prey drive is least required, but still a requirement in dogs that do personal protection work. And the reason why is because you don't need the level of commitment in a personal protection dog than you do in a police dog or a dog that does sport or military work, because in those roles the dog is offensive, and only as a protection dog is the dog reactive or defensive, and highly unlikely to require any level of long-term commitment in a attack, right? And if you really understand how most personal protection scenarios manifest, you would understand why that is. You still will require that drive to some level, right? And defense to some level is okay, but too much of it, which is what you will see in these types of dogs that you speak about, and the types of dogs that certain people, who I will not say their names because why would I help them, give out bad information on the internet, talk about. You don't want the ones that have that level of prey drive. There are many of them. Who do you think is commit? Who do you think is breeding dogs that have that level of prey drive? Who do you think? Who do you think is incentivized to breed dogs that have that level of prey drive? Of course, the people producing dogs that can handle the pressure and show the extreme performance necessary for top level dog sport. Like what you guys don't understand, well, not what you guys, what people like you, unfortunately, on the internet don't specifically understand is most of the guys that compete at the upper level of dog sport. We're not talking about the club. We're talking upper level, world level. The things those dogs have to be able to go through in order to accomplish that level and still look the way they look is far beyond what the average German Shepherd can do, right? So, of course, we're looking for extreme drive. We're looking for big heart. We're looking for big courage, because anything less than that is not going to be successful in many cases at the high level. Oxen says, yeah, Chandra says, Ike says, hold my beer. Exactly, right? Like Ike has extreme prey drive, and, he's a very committed dog, which is why I bred to him. But he also has some reactive aggression, and he also has some dominance aggression, right? Dominance is necessary as well. It's not, I shouldn't say it's necessary, but it helps. A little bit of dominance, right? So if you want to see a dog that exhibits dominance in his work, there's a dog that's very famous on the internet that you saw a lot of his work in the top level of IGP for a while. He was not much of a producer, but he's an example. If you want to see a lot of dominance that mixed with prey, right? It was a very nice combination of dominance and prey, a little bit of reactive aggression. What you have to understand is dogs are not exclusively in one drive when they perform. Different dogs, I mean, some dogs will be exclusively in one drive, but most dogs will actually be concurrently showing several drives, right? Whether it's dominance, prey, or reactive aggression, aka defense. And the level of drive exhibited in the specific behaviors, whether it's guarding or bite work, will depend, of course, on the individual dog and their genetic expression, as well as maybe the training that either highlighted or minimized those specific drives. But if you watch Bordy Blendy, you will see a dog that has a lot of prey drive, but I would say an equal measure of dominance in the work because of who he was. If you want to see a dog that has a lot of prey but also reactive aggression in the work, you can watch a dog like Quartus von der Staatsmacht, and there was another dog, Boli Yanaka, right? Had a fair bit of reactive aggression, but tons of prey to push him through that. And the reactive aggression put a nice little edge onto everything he did. How long does it, this is from Oxen, how long does it take to take the dog off leash with the elite course? No more than 6 weeks if you're being lazy. If you're quick, probably 3-4 weeks. JB, or not, sorry, not JB. When are the sale is over tomorrow, as I said. So let me reiterate that for those of you that are still here that didn't come in for the beginning. My Black Friday sale is over tomorrow. I am closing again the Pro Trainer course tomorrow. So if you want to jump into the Pro Trainer course, it's 20% off right now for the Black Friday weekend, and then I'm closing it Cyber Monday. And I'm closing the course too, so you won't be able to jump into the course for another while. I don't know when I'll open it again. Probably sometime in 2026. And then the all the other training courses, 40% off all of them, with code Friday40, shieldcanineonline.com. I'm closing that sale tomorrow, Cyber Monday, as well. Would I hire someone who passed my pro trainer course? I mean, it's possible. It depends on, obviously if I'm hiring in the first place, but we have Shield Canine locations that have definitely actually hired pro trainers. So, it's always nice if they come pre-educated. Auckland says, "Hey, what would you say to someone who only read your book and watched your YouTube videos and started offering board and train to other people's dogs for money? Would you advise against it?" I mean, it's not for me to say, right? Like, if you feel comfortable to do it, um, then go ahead and do it. Too far away, JP, to matter. This is a long time ago. Nobody cares anymore. People want to talk about dogs that are gone for many, many generations. It doesn't matter anymore. We speak about dogs that are current because those are the puppies that you can get now. There's no point to speak about dogs that are from like 5 generations ago that never really accomplished anything, but there's a lot of cool stories about them. Antonio says, have a Cane Corso puppy going to get your pro training, had a Rottweiler, trained him off your video. He pass. Excellent. Do I ship all over the world? Depends what you're speaking about. Some things I ship, some things I don't. Luker says, what affect retraining foundation progress? Chico versus Onyx. Who would improve their foundation if they start from the same shaky foundation? Well, they both started with a shaky foundation. Both dogs have had their strengths and weaknesses. He's referring to, well, my current dog, Chico, and Gage's father, Onyx. To be honest, if I had to pick one to have from the beginning, I would take Onyx. I would take Onyx over Chico. Yeah, because they existed in a time when cool stories ruled the day. So what you kids, maybe some of you don't remember, is before YouTube and before Instagram, we had Facebook. It still exists, but a lot of you are no longer on it. And before Facebook, we had something called forums, right? And forums were a place that people that had an interest in working dogs would go and they would speak about the different dogs that they had, or that they had seen, or that they had bred, and whatever else. And in the forums, internet forums at the time were not a place that you would really share video. It was actually quite complicated to share a video. Even pictures was a little bit difficult. Like, you had to go through an embedding process, and the average person just couldn't do it. So what it fundamentally led to was many, many people just speaking about things and like telling stories, and we having to take the stories at face value, or in many cases, not taking the stories at face value. So these dogs were somewhat known in that time, and we're just taking people's word for it instead of actually seeing the dogs and seeing the work, right? So if you cannot see the dog and you cannot see the work, but you can see maybe the offspring, you can be like, nothing special. You know what I mean? That's all you really need to know. Just like the dog I spoke about, Bordy Blendy, right? A lot of dominance in his work, but really, we know at this point he's not really a producer. Unfortunately, nice dog. I find really cool. Like, he will always have famous performances. He was a legendary dog in and of himself. Not much of a producer in general, and that's what we will know. That's what we know. So even if he's an awesome dog, does it really matter now? Yes, forums. Forums were a time when people could tell lots of cool stories, and you will see that many people that were famous on places like the German Shepherd Forum or the Working Dog Forum, these people, in the day when we started to transition to Facebook, and you could show your work now, and people would say, well, okay, whatever, stop telling me cool stories about the dog. Let me see it. Let me see the work of the dog. Let me see your work. All of a sudden, most of these people that were forum famous disappeared into the ether because now it was time to stop telling stories and to start showing. And, new stars arose, so to speak. You're talking about my equipment, e-collars, prong collars. Um, as far as I know, we do ship the equipment around the world, but you might have to wait for a while. You might have to wait for a while. Do I myself like a dog that has a lot of dominance and real man aggression? What do you think? Look back into my history. Look at a dog that I have like Chico. Tell me. You tell me. Are boxer dogs good for IGP? In general, no. Okay, guys, I'm going to wrap this one up. It was nice talking to all of you. I'll see you all on the next one. Again, if you want to jump in on the sale, I am ending it tomorrow, Cyber Monday, shieldcanineonline.com. You guys have a fantastic evening.